oh maybe, you like my easy smile. And maybe, oh maybe, we'll stop for a little while. And maybe, oh maybe, I'll ask if you like tea. And maybe, oh maybe, you'll have a cup with me. And maybe we don't, and decide to take a walk. And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Welcome to Ponder While We Wander. We're two friends who happen to be therapists go on a walk as we discuss relationships, nature, and meet life in the moment. Each episode is grounded in some aspect of eco-psychology, but can take us anywhere as we ponder while we wander. And you're invited to come along.
And you and I will ponder as we wander, as we walk.
Hello, Amber.
Hi, Natasha.
Welcome to this sunny day here in Port Townsend.
Yes, we're enjoying a sunny patch at the moment, waiting for the sun to spread. But it's out there, blue skies.
We found this sunny table. We wandered over to a sunny table here, and tell us about our location.
Yeah, we're in Chetzamoka Park, which is the ancestral lands of the Sklallam tribe. And this park was named after one of the chiefs. His name was Chetzamoka, but it's now called Chetzamoka.
And you might hear some birds in the background. Occasionally I'm hearing a bell out there. What's that bell that I'm hearing?
It's one of the bells on the buoy markers out there in the water.
Okay.
Yep. And I can hear the waves a little bit. The beach is below us.
There's a crow for sure, and some other little birds in the background here.
Yeah.
Maybe the occasional lawnmower.
Or passerby, since we are in a park.
Oh, seagulls.
Yeah, there they are.
And we're looking out over the water, and this water is part of the Puget Sound?
Yeah, this is right at the beginning of the Puget Sound, the mouth of the Puget Sound, and we're looking at Whidbey Island, which I know we've done lots of recordings over there, so on the opposite side of that.
And those mountains off in the distance are the Cascades?
The Olympic mountain range?
Those could be the Olympic mountain range. We were headed the other day where the Cascades were, but I think you're right. I think those are the Olympic.
Yeah, those are the other ones.
They're farther away.
Further away, correct. Yeah.
And today we are talking about journaling with nature.
We are.
We're very specific about this. Journaling with nature, not nature journaling, which we probably will do an episode on. But just to distinguish the two of those, oftentimes people talk about nature journaling in terms of maybe more field focused and being able to record things that are out there, and there are definitely ways of working with that. But today we're going to talk about journaling, and the with word I think is important here as well. That's the relationship with nature.
Yes, with, under double underline.
Double underline. I think journaling is one of these things that often is kind of elusive that people throw out there. Have you tried journaling? You should journal this. But when it comes down to it, there's so many ways in which one can journal. And if you just think that you're going to pick up a blank book and put pen to paper, I think that can be really daunting. And it's like, where to start? What do you do with it all?
Yeah. I think it can be helpful to think about, why. We're going to talk about some of the reasons why, and some of the ways, and some of the ways in. But yeah, just to pick up a journal and go, I think that can definitely feel very overwhelming for people.
Yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about kind of the overall piece of journaling, but intention, I like that word. Intention today is to maybe help us with our relationship with nature or help connect us more. It can be a therapeutic process to journal in terms of having to help us with emotional release or metabolizing emotions, can help us with our cognitive processing, our thinking processing of how we're thinking, what we're thinking. I think journaling in general can help us find clarity in things that maybe we're uncertain about, or help us with the changes that we want to see in our lives. Sometimes we can start to see patterns or changes over time. It helps us because change is such a slow process sometimes that if you're just living through it, you may not really be aware that changes have happened.
Yeah, I like to think of it as also a way for us to, it's just to kind of be, like, bear witness to our own life and stories. I'm talking about this change taking place over time. Yeah, our journal is like we can go back and kind of witness ourselves and our stories. I think that can be a really powerful aspect of journaling as well.
Yeah. So some of the ways in which, like, maybe a therapist or maybe you're an article that you run across would invite you to journal. There are ways in which we can do this. We'll kind of talk about in general, and then we'll talk about specifics in terms of relationship with nature. So in terms of that challenging or rewiring of maybe some negative thoughts or negativity bias. In previous episodes, I think we've talked about negativity bias, that we as humans are predisposed to kind of think of the bad things that are going to happen. It's just kind of part of our evolution. It's part of how we survived. The problem is that the same things that, 200, 300 years ago may have killed us, why we would have needed to be more focused on the dangerous stuff, isn't necessarily the stuff that is going to kill us today. But we're still in those same kind of thought patterns. And so being able to notice them and slowing down and writing about them allows us just to kind of take a look at them and recognize that we're there, that they are there. We also talked about self-reflection, that journaling can be a way of introspection.
Yeah, a way to really slow down and kind of, sometimes we use this term in therapy, like externalizing the problem, like this taking something that's really close or personal, or that it's hard to see outside of that really myopic lens, and being able to put it just a little bit outside of yourself helps us be able to look at things from different angles, think about it in different ways. So I think journaling can be a way that we sort of externalize maybe some of these, maybe negativity bias or perception or perspective. It gives us that opportunity. And I've heard people say this before too, like even just hearing themselves say something, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I totally resonate with that when I hear it out loud. And I think journaling can kind of do the same thing for us. When we put it down on paper and we read it back, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, or maybe there's more to that, or maybe there's a different way that I might interact with this information.
I also find in that same vein, it's kind of that storytelling. We kind of tell ourselves those same stories over and over again, but now if we're journaling, we can be specific and move it from just storytelling to processing, right? Getting more information about why we would think that way, or where those thoughts come from, or where that story has originated, or is that still a true story? So moving from just that storytelling where we would tell people, what did you do today, right? You could list all the things and go back to your calendar and see all the things you did over the last week. Or you can deepen it a little bit more and talk about what is that like to have lived that life? What is it like to have experienced those experiences? So we're creating an understanding there in our journaling process. And then we also can journal just to be present focused and anchor in the here and now. Some people could call that a mindfulness activity or a mindfulness practice. So journaling could come in there. We are mindful that there are bees. The bee just ran into my shirt, and now I'm noticing this shirt is inside out. Oh my goodness.
On a streak here.
I am on a streak. Well, we will take care of that later. I'm wearing my inside out shirt right now. It was fine when I had the sweater on and the sun wasn't out. We didn't notice that.
Counting for the sun.
No, I'm noticing it. Also, connecting with something bigger than ourselves. Again, we did not title this journaling in nature, but rather journaling with nature. That this is a relationship. It's an opportunity to have a relationship and a deepening process.
Yeah. We've talked a little bit about, and a lot about in our first season, but some of the elements, like what makes up a good relationship. And one of the things we talk about a lot is this idea of reciprocity and kind of noticing, where do we have impact, where are we impacted, how are we giving and receiving, like giving and receiving. So thinking about this journaling with nature, we're also leaning into these ideas of relationship. And when you think of a good relationship, what are some of those factors?
Yeah, I was noticing that I think there's a belief system or a story that we're told sometimes. Maybe it's through commercial marketing, maybe it's through other ideas, that sometimes we think of nature as a place to escape our everyday lives. And while that can be true, I think that it doesn't give the full kind of benefit and relationship story to it, that we're not escaping into nature. I tend to think that sometimes people who hear me go off on my adventures think that's what I'm doing. I'm escaping my life and escaping into nature. And that can be part of it. But what we are maybe trying to do here is create more of a connection. And I tend to think that that's what I do when I go off on some of my adventures, is that they are nature connecting, and it is reconnecting or remembering myself to my relationship with nature.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about, the ways that we tend to greet a space when we come in. We try to learn a little bit about the history or the particularities of that area. We might say goodbye. These are typical, you could say, like relationship things, right? We usually greet people, we say goodbye, we learn a little bit about them, we're curious about them. So yeah, ways that we hold that in this podcast as well.
So now we're going to get into some maybe more concrete ways in which you can, and we can all journal with nature specifically. And there are some practical things about all you need really is paper and a writing instrument. I tend to think that this process works better if you are actually writing things out, pen to paper or pencil to paper, or however that works. I know that a lot of people like to take notes on their phone these days, but there's something about that writing process that also is very synthesizing and integrating, and it fires your neurons in different ways than text or text typing.
And I also just like to encourage people, yes, write. I agree, there's like this pen to paper experience, but also like that can be a word, a few words, a bullet point. It doesn't have to start with a full story or sentence or paragraph. It's sort of like just beginning with whatever arrives in terms of what to actually write on the page. Try not to let that be a barrier if you don't have a full story that's coming right to mind. A lot of times it's once we start, then things start to flow and emerge.
And maybe what we're presenting today are ways of being with journaling, and you can start to combine some of these as well. You don't have to stick with one or the other, and that you can kind of see what works and allow that to be emergent, right? To unfold as you go through the process. The first way of journaling could just be through observations and senses. I know you had some thoughts about that, about how to do that. And it's entryways.
Yeah, I sometimes like to think about, taking a few moments and being able to kind of bring yourself more fully present to an area that you're in, whether you're accessing that through your senses. That's a great place to start. And then beginning to kind of notice, if something catches your attention or, piques your interest, getting curious around how that sort of feels in your body, being able to notice those different sensations that arise, or maybe there's a feeling that arises, and it's in response to your environment and where you're at. So being able to then kind of start from that point and write about whatever those sensations are, whatever that connection might be, what stories you might be telling about the other than human nature that caught your attention.
And then really tuning into, like we sometimes do when we open these, with what the temperature might be, what you see around you, what you hear around you, and noticing that sometimes when you arrive into an area, the environment shifts just because you showed up to it. One of the most telling things is sometimes the birds in the area. The longer we have sat here and just incorporated ourselves into this environment, the birds have started back up again just by being here. And that happens a lot with where we end up going and what we end up doing.
Yeah, and I think, there's different, you can start your levels of awareness and touching base at any point of entering a location. But I do think there is something that shifts a little bit when we start to slow down and bring our senses online. Like we start to notice too, like there's different parts of our brain that are maybe walking us in and getting us set up and settled. Not that we're not taking in our surroundings even then, but there's this shift that starts to happen when we slow down and we really kind of begin to notice. I was thinking about that we were talking about that just the other day when we were recording by the river, and there was all of these signs, smell and birds that were at the river, that there might be we were in the full life cycle of salmon spawning, birth and death. And I was telling you earlier, I was like, I could smell the fish, I could see the birds there eating something. And it took several minutes before I was slowed down enough and present enough to look down and see that I was standing very close next to a salmon that had ended its life cycle. So I think I'm just noticing that it's like even walking into that space, knowing our intention was to be present and to slow down, sometimes it takes us a minute to actually get there. So noticing what that process is like for you as well.
Yeah, there's a different kind of timing that nature has. That it's not clock time, but it takes us a while sometimes to switch into or move into.
Yeah, move deeper into relationship with.
Yeah. And whether or not you take these observations and you actually write about them, I think it's still a good practice to tune into those senses when you begin your journaling with nature experience. And then you can also move into an experience of gratitude. I think that it's a nice way to start out a session of journaling with nature is to kind of ground ourselves in some gratitude. And that could be you tapping into kind of your whole life or just whatever is coming up for you in the moment. But again, it's some of these entryways into deepening that experience and that relationship. It's kind of like if you meet up with a friend somewhere, like there is some gratitude. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you so long, right? It's that sense of gratitude and that feeling of connectedness. Greeting like a friend.
Yes.
There's other ways of journaling with nature that include noticing when some memories or stories or different understandings come up. They just kind of naturally emerge as we sit in a space. Sometimes we make these connections, or there is just a sense of something that starts to emerge, something that starts to happen. And I think taking maybe those stories and not just repeating them, but noticing them. You can journal about them, you can write them down, and then adding something like, what is important about this? Or why do I think this story showed up right now in my life?
I like that.
I think it's a way to encourage that curiosity, that deepening of a memory or remembrance. Connection. And there might even be a lesson there for us that emerges. Hello, bee.
It's very close to me.
It's God. It's also a way to process grief and loss and worries, love and longing and hopes and dreams. That's that. Moving into a process of naming feeling states that come up, allowing for what comes up. And we talked a little bit when we were preparing for this about synchronicities and the collective unconscious.
Yeah. Those are always fun observations for me, thinking about maybe synchronicity. It's like a cluster of events, or maybe we're talking about a certain idea or concept, and then we might notice something in nature that, flies across our path or walks in front of us that feels connected to what we were talking about or related to an idea, but really showing up kind of in this like symbolic way. Which, when it comes to synchronicities, I think there can be some ideas about like a prescribed meaning for a symbol. We were talking about that, like this, a crow means this, or, this experience with nature means this. And though there are like stories and there's meaning to symbols, and we might have relationships to things that, might be part of what we call our collective unconscious, sort of these ideas and symbols that float around in a greater consciousness. I think the important part about synchronicity or meaning making is overlaying your own personal story or relationship or experience with whatever. I'm using an example of an animal or a creature in this sense, but what that meaning might be specifically to you, that it's not prescriptive, that there's a space where it's like we're collecting these experiences, or we're noticing these cluster of events or clusters of symbols together in relationship to our own lives and stories as well.
Yeah. And I love the phrase, nature speaks in metaphor, because I think it is an important remembering that we as humans may not be as attuned to in our very left brain, kind of goal-oriented world, where we are trying to kind of move the needle forward and push things and make progress and all this stuff. I think this way of being, of noticing that nature is communicating with us. Like it is trying to have a relationship with us. But we have to be in a place where we can understand and we can collect some of that memory a little bit more of that understanding. And so metaphor, I think, is one of those places where we can start to just open that door a little bit more and be open and be curious to what might be coming across, like not as an omen or a superstition, right, but as just information that we might be gathering again from the world around us.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, what other story can we begin to tell, or what other perspective might we explore when we're caught in some synchronicity or metaphor, in using metaphor?
So journaling can be, in that respect, being able to name and list feeling states, but also noticing as you're going through that process, what is happening? Does a gentle breeze turn into, stronger wind, or do these bees keep coming over to us, or are the crows trying to say something? Right? Are they having a party? Are they warning us of something? Like, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to us personally? And then journal about it.
Yeah. I'm remembering as you're saying that there was a period of time I would be walking on my road, and in this one particular place, every time I walked by there, and it seemed a bit early, it was like maybe a little before dusk, there was this bat that would fly and swoop down overhead, and it always would just catch my attention. But like when I was sort of leaning into that experience or getting curious about metaphor or story, it was an opportunity or an invitation to be like, oh, what do bats symbolize in general? There's lots of ideas people have about bats and well, what's happening right now in this moment in time when I'm walking on this road, and what are my own personal feelings about bats and stories, and it's like a rich landscape to explore. What is the bat? Or why is the bat here right now? Or what might the bat be trying to tell me or teach me? Or
the early bat.
The early bat, yeah. And why this spot? Like, what's happening in this spot that he's... So it's like you can kind of feel the lead into like being able to open up curiosity and questions and relationship with yourself and the bat.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we can also use that as like a relationship check-in and a relationship check-up, maybe, with our relationship with nature. Of am I present to what's showing up around me, or by walking right past things sometimes that would be really cool or symbolic to me. If I'm in my head too much, or if I'm focused just on a destination, I may absolutely miss those messages or symbols that are coming through. I was thinking of this also of like, we don't actually have to be in nature to journal with nature. I often read or do audiobooks or, visit some artwork or poetry or listen to podcasts that have to do with nature. And they are ways for me to, what Joanna Macy might call seeing with new eyes, ways of being able to see things with new eyes and synthesizing an experience. So I might even take that information and turn it into something like that would enhance gardening for myself, or I've done some plein air painting, or photography is another thing that I like to do. Like they all kind of feed off of each other and come together. But then I can also take some of those pieces of an experience that I had in my garden, if I learned something new and I've tried it and it didn't work out or it did work out, I could write about that experience. If there was some art that spoke to me, I could definitely lean into that in my journaling with nature.
Yeah.
If anything in our podcasts come up that you feel like those are some of the ponder points that we throw out there, those are good places to journal with nature.
My kiddos have been falling asleep to bird sounds lately. So thinking about, and we're not outside at all in those periods of time. We're very much inside. And I'm also thinking about, people do this when they're studying or trying to focus. I mean, a lot of times people will put on nature sounds or the sounds of water rushing. So there's lots of ways we can access these experiences, memories, images, without necessarily having to be outside. Yeah.
I was thinking of the way that somebody close to me had written some poetry, and it was about a house plant that she was having a hard time keeping happy and alive and thriving, and being able to turn that into that experience into poetry and journaling in the journaling process. And I was thinking about how I'm looking out at the ocean here, and especially when I'm around you, I'm always looking out for orcas, because I know that you were always looking out for orcas. And how often you walk away without seeing the orcas, and what that experience is like.
Yep, I know, but I just love them so much. I know they're out there, but even if I don't get the chance to see them, I'm still grateful for that relationship that I have with them, because it draws my eye out. That far and wide, and it takes in a different perspective. But still, I would also like to see them. I'm not gonna lie. I'm waiting for them always.
And I think these are the benefits now that we're starting to talk about. And if we can turn this into habit or a ritual, even the process of greeting a space and saying goodbye, it starts to deepen that relationship. And we know that when we have these deeper relationships, and we even feel the subtle ways in which we impact the world around us, like if I show up to a space and the squirrels run away, but when I sit here long enough, they start to come back again. We start to see that we do have impact in the world around us, and that some of the choices that we are making also has impact in the world around us that we may not be connected to, and might be important to us collectively to understand that, or be curious about it, or to be more sensitive to that.
Yeah, I think a place that always inspires or brings to forefront of my mind, our interconnectedness, or our part of something, maybe bigger than ourselves, is and the mystery of life, things that we still don't know, is stargazing at night. And it's such a rich place to lean into that. And it reminds me of, the vastness, our interconnectedness, memories and shared experiences with people, relationship, and leaving that space of there's so much to be known, so much unknown, and how to even translate sort of that idea into our natural world, things that we can still learn about and stay curious about, to our neighbors, our community, our world. There's mystery there. We're not going to know everything, and how do we stay in this place of kind of curiosity and acknowledgement of our interconnectedness.
Yeah, I think that the benefits of having a practice of journaling with nature can absolutely be part of helping us understand and take in those existential questions that we all have as humans, And especially those of us who might consider ourselves more spiritual, non-religious, which is a growing population, that it is a way of opening those doors and sitting with and being able to be with those mysteries, which can be really hard to sit without those uncertainties and those existential issues. And as we go through life, and different phases of our life are going to call for different kind of meaning making of where we are and how we impact the world, and are we still kind of congruent with our values on the inside, reflecting our behaviors and the stuff that we do on an everyday basis on the outside. These are all the benefits that can come out of a process like journaling with nature.
Yeah.
We are going to have an offering for you by the time this episode comes out, which is going to be a collection of nature journaling prompts and offerings and a guided somatic entry experience. Hopefully we'll get that all together and out to you. So that should be in the show notes and then also on the website for you. And we hope that you will enjoy those, especially since you didn't have to feverishly write down all these ideas. You can always come back and listen to this again if you want to.
Yeah, indeed.
I also was thinking, do you have any practical tips about starting a journaling with nature process? I know we talked about being able to, it doesn't have to take a whole lot of time.
Practical tips.
One of my practical tips is I love a new journal or notebook, and I think it's a great place to start, like having a dedicated journal or notebook for this experience. You may like pages that are lined or unlined, or in those grids or the dot patterns or whatever speaks to you. It may have a fancy cover, or it may just have a plain cover or a color that you like or inspires you, but something that makes you look forward to picking it up and wanting to open it and do something with it.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm always thinking about ways to just make it so accessible, like reducing any kind of barrier. And I mean, I know maybe this might sound strange to some people, but honestly, I think you can. I mean, I'm with you on the new journal. I'm always looking for a new journal opportunity. This is not in opposition to that. This is in support of less barriers. But a back of a piece of mail that you got, a napkin from a cafe. Like, there's been many times where I've been struck by something that I feel like I wanted to write about or process, and if I had stopped myself because I hadn't pre-planned that and had my journal versus just kind of, okay, this napkin will do. I mean, you can always go rewrite it later or flesh it out more, or, take a picture of it and save it, but I think, like, truly, like, it can be as simple as that. I mean, countless memories of mail, unopened mail that my mom had always written, like notes or conversations or like her to-do list on the back of. So it can be anything. It's about allowing.
So precious.
It doesn't have to be so precious. Like, I love the Precious Journal, but like, don't let that stop you. If the moment arises or you're feeling that pull, like, just go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's more about the process and being curious about, like, engaging with yourself and with nature.
I also think a lot of times when we start writing, we have this kind of reflex because most of us learn to write in school where we're going to be judged by it. And so don't even, like, try and notice if you're worried about spelling or grammar or punctuation, or even if you complete a sentence or it's a run-on sentence, like, just let it be. Let it happen. Don't try. I'm not saying don't worry too much about it, but notice if you are worried about it, that you have permission to just let that be. And sometimes the scary part is a blank page, and sometimes if you have a pencil with you, you could do like a put a leaf under the plate and do under the paper and do a rubbing so you can see the veins coming through, so just so you don't have a blank paper.
Yeah.
Or even crumple the paper up so it's not so precious.
I love that. Well, I think too, an easy or perhaps accessible practice, if you are outside as you're doing this, walk around, like collect a few things that catch your interest, a leaf, a stick, a flower. You can have those even be as entry points and bring them back to wherever you're sitting, line them up. And this opening sentence, which everyone will recognize once I say it, I feel like is almost like a portal entry into this kind of landscape. It's like once upon a time, and then we go from there, right? So if you've got your little leaves, be like, once upon a time, there was a blah, blah, blah. Like, it gives you like a familiar and recognizable point of entry, and I think a lot of us have memory of that phrase of like once upon a time. It's like it signals a transition, and so let that perhaps even just be your entry point and see where you go from there.
I also like working your way up. Like maybe it is only 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you start the process, but maybe you want to go longer. Maybe you want to go to a place that is a little farther away. And so you think about things like taking some water and some snacks with you, wearing your sunscreen, bringing a jacket, things that are going to make you feel comfortable in the space and feel a little safer and be present, not perfect.
Present, not perfect. I'm thinking about too, you and I are always weaving in songs and music and story writing in that way, but I think how many songs might we know that are related to nature or a particular animal? Like I'm hearing lots of birds in a song like Blackbird, it's like coming right into my mind. So we can find lots of interesting ways of entry point of like, oh, I'm catching this. Oh, what does that remind me of? And maybe you find yourself in a song, and that can even be an entry point of what memories come up or what it makes you think about or how it feels in your body, and being able to write about that. You can begin just writing the lyrics that you know. Sometimes it's just getting the pen to the paper and getting it flowing, and then a lot can come from there.
Awesome. Did you have a pounder point for us today?
I should, because we do that every single time. And
your ponder point for a second here.
Sounds good.
I also think about my ponder point here. I think my ponder point is a journal prompt that starts with something like, when I am most connected to nature, the world around me, I remember. And then just fill in the blank. Let that go. Let that be something that you take with you. See where it takes you.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna continue on with what I was thinking around that once upon a time. So I think it would be interesting for people just to ponder that if you go outside and you collect anything, one thing that catches your attention, and then begin with that phrase like once upon a time, and see what it's like to write a story about the thing you collected, your relationship to that. Can you tell a story about that, even make-believe story or a hope for that relationship? So seeing what it's like to kind of play around with that once upon a time in terms of a relationship with self and nature.
Do you have anything else?
Our dog is barking us out over there.
The dog is barking us out. So your time is up. We've got to move on. Well, thank you for being with us through this episode today, and I hope that it inspires you and you can share this. You can also journal with other people. That is absolutely entirely something that you can do. So look forward to that. The link, go check that out and see if that inspires you as well. And we will come back for our next episode where we will be talking about an awe-wa. Feeling that sense of awe and looking for it as we go on a walk.
I can't wait for that. Well, until then, Natasha, wander well.